It started as a fun moment on a celebrity talk show. Laughs, light jokes, nothing serious. But when Will Smith made a comment about a visiting African president's outfit, no one expected what happened next. The response wasn't angry. It wasn't funny either. It was calm, honest, and so powerful that it left Will emotional, and the world watching in silence. The set was bright. The mood was light. On the Evening with Celebrities show, Hollywood's Will Smith sat on one couch, smiling and relaxed. Across from him sat President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso. Quiet, composed, dressed in a simple suit. The segment was meant to be fun, full of casual back and forth. The host laughed and nudged Will playfully. "So, Will, ever thought about running for president? You'd have to go up against this guy." Will smiled and replied jokingly, "Well, I'd at least bring some style to the table. No offense, President Traoré, but it kinda looks like your tailor gave up halfway." The crowd laughed. "Traoré," smiled politely. Will clearly didn't mean harm. It was just a joke, the kind you often hear on talk shows. But then the energy changed. Traoré leaned in gently, folded his hands, and waited for the laughter to stop. He looked at Will and spoke, not with anger, but with steady calm. "I don't wear power," he said softly. "I carry it." The room went quiet. He continued, looking toward Will. "In Burkina Faso, some children walk for miles barefoot, just to study under a tree. Some villages have no electricity. If I wore a $5,000 suit, I'd be stealing from them." Will's smile faded. Traoré went on, "You make films that inspire people. I make decisions that affect who eats, who lives, and who gets medical care, even when I say nothing. If expensive clothes could fix our hospitals, I'd wear gold." No one in the room moved, no claps, no chuckles, just silence. His words weren't dramatic, just raw and real. Will blinked slowly and leaned back. Something had clearly struck a chord. This wasn't about a fashion comment anymore. It was about truly seeing the responsibility one man carried. Then the cameras captured a rare moment, tears in Will's eyes. He looked away quickly, but viewers noticed, and within hours, the clip was everywhere. A short 90-second video titled "Will Smith Humbled by President Ibrahim Traoré's Words" crossed 1 million views in just 2 hours. But this wasn't just a viral trend. It meant something. One viewer wrote, "That wasn't a comeback. That was truth delivered with grace." Another commented, "I showed this to my 12-year-old. We both cried." Backstage, the mood was different. Not awkward, just quiet. Will sat alone, drinking water, clearly deep in thought. A producer checked on him. "You okay?" He nodded but didn't say a word. Later, Will walked down the hallway and found President Traoré sitting quietly, reading a small book. He paused, then spoke. "Mr. President." Traoré looked up and smiled gently. Will's voice cracked. "I needed that. Thank you." They shook hands, one a Hollywood icon, the other a leader from West Africa, and in that simple handshake people saw something greater than a viral moment. They saw a reminder: true power doesn't shout, it speaks when it matters most. The moment wasn't just viral, it was unforgettable. People around the world saw something real: respect, humility, and truth, shared between two men from completely different worlds. By the next morning, the internet couldn't stop talking about it. The short clip of President Ibrahim Traoré's calm response to Will Smith had spread like wildfire. News channels replayed it. Influencers reacted with emotion. Even big media outlets that rarely cover African leaders were suddenly talking about Traoré. One phrase started trending worldwide. When dignity spoke, the world listened. In Burkina Faso, local markets turned up their radios. People gathered around to hear the clip again and again, farmers, students, and elders. They didn't just see their president, they saw a father figure, steady, kind, and true to his people. In the US, Will Smith posted a short video. "I joked on TV. He gave me wisdom. I've met kings and legends, but this was different." He wasn't reading from a script. He was clearly moved, and everyone could feel it. But what many didn't know was that something even deeper had begun. Traoré didn't plan it, but his message had started to plant seeds, not in politics, in people's hearts. Without knowing it, he had become more than a leader. He had become a mirror, making people reflect. And soon, that message reached a little girl who would change everything. In a small hospital in Ouagadougou, 11-year-old, Muna was fighting leukemia the night before she and her mother had watched the TV clip together. With tired eyes, Muna whispered, "Mama, he's not like the others." She picked up a pen with shaky hands and wrote a short letter. "Can we send this to him?" A nurse, touched by her words, shared the letter on Twitter. The caption read, "She has only a few days left, but she wants to thank her president." The letter said, "Dear President Traoré, I'm sick, but when I saw you on TV, I forgot my pain for a moment. You made me proud. You didn't yell or laugh back. You just spoke like a real papa. Thank you. I wish I could hug you." Within hours, the post had 2 million likes. In New York, inside the Burkina Faso embassy, President Traoré saw the letter. He didn't speak at first. Then he stood up, put on his jacket and turned to his staff. "Cancel my next meeting," he said. "I'm going to call a child." Back in the hospital room, the phone rang. Muna's mother answered, puzzled. "Hello?" A calm, warm voice replied. "Madame, this is President Ibrahim Traoré. May I please speak to your daughter?" Everyone in the room froze. The nurse covered her mouth. Muna's eyes widened. Traoré spoke gently to her, asking her favorite color, her favorite food. She laughed quietly through her pain. Then she asked, "Are you really the man from TV?" He smiled. "Yes, little one, but more importantly, I'm your friend." Tears filled the room. Then he told her, "You're stronger than me, Muna. You reminded the world to be kind." His voice shook for just a moment. After the call ended, Traoré sat quietly, looking out at the busy American streets. But his mind was far away, in a hospital room, with a little girl full of courage. That night, he made a decision. He wouldn't just be a leader who went viral. He would be a reason people remembered to care, to listen, and to lead with heart. Back at the TV studio, the cameras were off, but the room still felt heavy. Will Smith stood quietly near the curtain. His hands were shaking. Traoré's calm words were still echoing in his mind. A few crew members avoided eye contact, unsure of what they had just witnessed. Will finally approached Traoré and asked, softly, "You meant it, didn't you?" The president nodded. "I don't speak to impress. I speak because truth should be lived, not performed." There were no lights, no audience, just 2 men, one known for his charm, the other for his courage, standing in a moment of quiet truth. Then Traoré looked at Will and asked, "You carry the world's laughter, Will, but have you ever let the world hear your pain?" That question shook Will deeply. He nodded, trying to hold back tears. Elsewhere in Philadelphia, Will's mother, Caroline, watched the clip in her living room. She had seen her son move millions through his work, but this time felt different. She texted him, You've made movies, baby. But tonight you made meaning. That man reminded me of your father, calm, strong, kind. Don't lose this moment." Will stared at the message for a long time. You made meaning. He hadn't cried in front of his mother in years. But this time, he couldn't hold back. Something in Traoré's words had reached deep inside him, past the fame, past the image, into the part of him that just wanted to be seen for who he really was. He opened his phone, and for the first time in years, he started writing. The next morning, Will Smith posted something personal on Instagram, a photo of President Traoré, calm and quiet on the talk show set. The caption wasn't flashy. It was heartfelt. President Traoré, you didn't snap back. You didn't brush it off. You gave me truth. In your calm, I saw my chaos. In your dignity, I saw my doubts. You reminded me, and maybe the world, that real strength isn't in how loud a man is, but in how deeply he carries what's true. Thank you. I'm learning, and I'm listening. The post went viral in minutes. Politicians shared it. Parents used it to teach their children. Young people cried. And in Ouagadougou, the president's office was flooded with letters from around the world. One letter stood out, not from a celebrity or official, but from a young boy in Harlem. It ended with a quiet line. I want to be calm like you when people laugh at me. Traoré read the letter slowly, folded it, and told his advisors, this isn't about what happened on TV anymore. Something is waking up on the other side of the world. In Brooklyn, 12-year-old Marcus sat on the edge of his bed. He'd had a hard day, teased at school, pushed around, laughed at for his worn-out shoes. His mother made him tea, but he didn't say much. Later, as she scrolled on her phone, she came across the video clip of President Traoré and Will Smith. She turned up the volume. Marcus looked over. He heard the words, the world doesn't need louder men. It needs quieter hearts with deeper truths. He froze. He replayed that line over and over. Then he pulled a worn notebook from under his pillow and wrote, Dear Mr. Traoré, today I was laughed at, but I didn't shout. I remembered your voice. I think that made me strong. He didn't know if he'd ever send it, but writing it gave him peace. That night, for the first time in weeks, he slept soundly. Back in Traoré's modest office, his team had filtered through countless messages. One email stopped him. It was a scan of Marcus's letter. He read it 3 times, quietly, then looked out the window and said to his aide, We lead nations, but sometimes we just need to hold one child's pain. He asked for a call to be arranged, immediately. That same evening, Marcus was called into the school counselor's office. Nervous, he thought he was in trouble. Instead, he was handed a phone. Hello? A kind voice replied, This is Ibrahim Traoré. I read your letter. Marcus went silent. He thought it was a joke. But Traoré continued, You're stronger than many adults I've met. You gave me hope today, Marcus cried. Not loudly, but with quiet sobs that came from feeling finally seen. The very next day, Will Smith landed quietly in Ouagadougou. No cameras, no team, just himself. When President Traoré saw him, he smiled warmly. Didn't expect Hollywood to come this humbly, he said with a grin. Will chuckled, then grew serious. I came because what you said didn't just touch me. It changed me. They sat under a tree at a local school. Children played nearby, unaware of the moment unfolding. Will handed Traoré a folded paper. It's a list, he said, of everyone I owe an apology to, for things I did out of pain, out of pride, out of pressure. Traoré read through the names, then looked at Will and nodded. Healing doesn't start when we fix the world, he said. It starts when we tell the truth to ourselves. Just then, a small girl ran over and handed Will a flower. He knelt down, smiled, and thanked her. It wasn't a show. It wasn't a photo op. It was real, and more human than anything Will had felt in years. No cameras were needed. Elsewhere, in a dusty barbershop outside Ouagadougou, a group of young men crowded around a small, flickering TV. They watched the original talk show clip, where Will's joke met President Traoré's quiet truth. One young man, Idris, wiped his eyes. "It's the first time I've seen a president speak from the soul," he said. The old barber, who had seen many leaders come and go, nodded slowly. "He didn't just speak to Will," he said. He spoke to all of us who've been laughed at for being quiet or different. They turned off the TV. They didn't need to say more. They had just witnessed something pure in a world that often felt cold. 2 days later, a handwritten letter arrived at the Burkina Faso embassy in Los Angeles. It was from Jada Pinkett Smith. She had watched the live interview, then watched it again, then cried. Her letter was simple, not formal, just honest. "Dear President Traoré, I don't know if you realize what you did, not just for Will, but for millions of us who needed to be reminded that calm can be powerful, truth can be gentle, and dignity can still lead. Many men watching that day had never been told what real dignity looks like, that it doesn't mean dominating others. And in just one quiet moment, without raising your voice, President Traoré taught something the world had long forgotten. Calm is not weakness, it's strength, the kind that doesn't need to shout." He read the letter silently, then folded it carefully and tucked it into his journal. He looked over at his aide and said, "We don't need louder speeches. We need louder silence and deeper action." Around the world, something unexpected began to unfold. Clips of Traoré's words were now being subtitled into Mandarin, Arabic, French, Portuguese, even Swahili. Not just because the video was trending, but because something about it felt honest. It felt like truth had finally spoken. University professors brought it into classrooms. Psychologists wrote about it in journals. Churches and mosques quoted it in sermons. People weren't just watching a viral moment. They were pausing, reflecting, talking about it over dinner, in schools, in workplaces. Even a late-night comedian who had joked about the moment returned on air days later to say, "I thought it was just another awkward talk show clip. But now I see. That wasn't a moment. That was history being made." In Burkina Faso, a local school renamed its library in Traoré's honor. They called it the Quiet Voice of Truth. This was no longer about Will Smith. It wasn't even about television. It had become something else. A symbol. A mirror. A shift. 3 days after the viral exchange, Will Smith quietly appeared on a daytime talk show in New York. No big intro. No comedy. Just a chair and a microphone. His voice cracked a little as he spoke. "I've made movies. I've made people laugh. But I've never had a moment stop me like that night. When President Traoré looked at me, it wasn't just me he saw. It was the performance we all put on every day. And he saw right through it." He paused. "He reminded me what it means to be a man. Not through power, through peace." No one clapped. A few wiped away quiet tears. No one looked away. That same night, Traoré's assistant walked into his office with a message. "Mr. President, it's from Will." The email was short and raw. "I've spoken from the heart in public, but I need to speak to yours. I want to come to Ouagadougou, not as an actor, just as a man." Traoré smiled gently. "Let him come," he said. "Let him see where truth is born, not in palaces, but in pain." The next morning, Will landed in Burkina Faso. There were no cameras, no press, no red carpet. Just President Traoré himself, wearing a plain shirt, standing with his hand out. They embraced. No words needed. Just a quiet understanding. 2 lives, 2 paths, 2 men who had found each other in the most unexpected way. On day 6, they held a small press conference outside a youth center in Ouagadougou. Will stood beside Traoré, steady and sincere. "This man didn't fight back," he said. "He didn't try to win. He showed us what dignity really looks like when the world expects ego." He looked into the camera. If you're watching this, ask yourself, when was the last time you really listened? Not with your ears, but with your heart. Traoré stepped forward. He spoke softly. "We don't heal by mocking others. We heal by seeing their wounds and honoring them." The crowd didn't clap. They stood still, moved. The clip of the moment went live online. Within 24 hours, 40 million views. But more than views, something else had happened. People cried, not because they were entertained, because for a brief moment, in a world full of noise, they had seen something real. Dear viewer, if this story touched you, if even one line made you pause, please like, subscribe, or comment below. Not for the algorithm, but so more people can feel what you just felt. Tell us, what part stayed with you the most? Let this not be the end. Let it be the beginning of how we choose to see each other. Let me know if you'd like this version, adapted as a YouTube script with visuals and timestamps, a voiceover-ready monologue, a translated Urdu version for a broader audience, a compressed version for Instagram Reels or Shorts. Happy to help you bring this story to more hearts. Tools.